Russian President Vladimir Putin has arrived in India for annual summit talks between the two nations. India and Russia are expected to sign a missile deal which is estimated to be worth more than $5 billion. Vladimir Putin is accompanied by a high-level delegation including Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and was welcomed by the Indian Foreign Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj upon his arrival in New Delhi. Key Republican Party members have expressed satisfaction with the FBI's report on the Brett Kavanaugh investigation. One copy of the report exists for about 100 senators to read, but Republicans have hinted that the report does not support the accusations of sexual misconduct that have been leveled against Kavanaugh, boosting the chances of his appointment to the U.S. Supreme Court. The confirmation vote on his lifetime appointment to the Supreme Court is expected on Saturday. Now, hundreds of protesters are making their way to the United States Supreme Court in Washington, D.C. as a part of the cancelled Kavanaugh protests. The protests have come in the wake of Republicans hinting that the FBI report does not confirm the allegations of sexual assault and misconduct that have been leveled against Justice Brett Kavanaugh. A confirmation vote on his lifetime appointment to the Supreme Court is expected on Saturday. In a speech at the Hudson Institute think tank in Washington, United States Vice President Mike Pence has escalated Washington's pressure campaign against Beijing by accusing China of comprehensive and coordinated efforts to undermine President Donald Trump ahead of the next month's congressional midterm elections. It's also accused China of reckless military action in the South China Sea. The United States Defense Secretary James Mattis has warned Russia of violating a Cold War-era arms control treaty. It has said that unless Russia does not correct its course, the United States would have to respond. Now, the United States believes that Russia is developing a ground-launched system in breach of the Cold War Treaty, known as the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, that could allow Moscow to launch a nuclear strike on Europe at short notice. Russia has consistently denied any such violation and has also said that no such program is in the making at this point of time. Benjamin Netanyahu has said that Israel is set to further fortify the Gaza border in the face of the rising Palestinian protests, which are now in their 7th month. Netanyahu made the statement in a joint conference with German Chancellor Angela Merkel, who is in Israel for an official visit. Although Netanyahu did not indicate any immediate offensive, he has suggested stronger action at the frontier to foil any further Palestinian attempts to breach Israel's security fence. In Syria's war-torn Hama region, many are returning back to their homes after the situation in the country has eased slightly, following an agreement between Russia and Turkey on a demilitarized zone in the northwestern Idlib region. Many Syrians are slowly attempting to pick up pieces of their lives and rebuild their homes that were destroyed during the fighting. The UNHCR has said that it plans to help over 1,000 families and also put back doors and windows to their houses by the end of this year. United Nations Special Envoy Martin Griffiths has said that the only way to alleviate the situation in Yemen is by fixing the country's economy and that the United Nations is working on an emergency plan to stimulate the country's failing real currency. Yemen is one of the poorest of the Arab nations and its currency has plunged by about 500% against the dollar since the start of the civil war in 2015. Zimbabwe will vaccinate over 1.4 million people to combat the country's worst cholera outbreak in almost over a decade. The southern African nation has been battling a massive surge of cholera cases in the latest outbreak, with over 10,000 people having been infected this year. The country had recently appealed for monetary aid of almost about $35 million to repair the country's broken sewage system and also buy vaccines. The vaccinations will begin in some of the most densely populated areas of the country and then branch out to smaller villages. Seven Rohingya migrants were deported from India via the Moreh border in Manipur. The group was returned to Myanmar after the Supreme Court of India refused to interfere in the matter. Indian officials have said that the repatriation was carried out with the full knowledge and concurrence of the Myanmar government. A week after a devastating earthquake and tsunami ravaged Indonesia's Sulawesi Islands, tens of thousands of people who were left homeless are still in dire need of aid, with many looking to flee the worst-hit areas. Although an Indonesian Navy ship arrived in the damaged harbour outside of Palu carrying boxes of bottled water and other supplies to the survivors, many locals say that it was too little, too late. Meanwhile, scientists are trying to narrow down on a cause of the devastating earthquake and the tsunami in Indonesia. Research indicates that the 7.5 magnitude earthquake was a sideways rather than a vertical movement of the tectonic plates, which eventually led to a vast length of a fault line, triggering underwater landslides that caused the tidal waves. Now, the waves then magnified the intensity as they rushed into the island through a narrow bay. Scientists are warning that another natural calamity is inevitable in the highly volatile region. The toxic algae blooms that are known as red tide have been found off beaches near Miami. The algae bloom is a rare occurrence on the east coast and more often is seen in the Gulf of Mexico. The phenomenon is known to be menacing for aquatic life, as the toxins can kill shoals of fish that later on wash up onto the beach. It also exudes toxins that irritate swimmers' skins and also are carried on shore by winds, causing people to cough and wheeze. The bloom in Miami comes after a month-long bloom of the Florida's Gulf Coast earlier this year, which had killed scores of sea turtles. The United States First Lady Melania Trump arrived in Malawi for the second leg of her African nation tour. The First Lady was greeted by a group of young school children who cheered her arrival. So far, Melania Trump's visit has kept a neutral tone, with child welfare being the central theme of the visit, which started in Ghana. Melania will next be travelling to Kenya and Egypt before returning to the United States. An antiquities exhibition in Syria's Damascus is drawing tourists to the war-torn city. 500 artifacts from around the Syrian country are on display at the exhibition, and amongst the many rare items are two rare busts rescued from the ancient city of Palmyra and restored in Italy after being damaged by the Islamic State jihadist group. Now, the exhibits were found by the Syrian army and its allies and the different security forces after they retook cities and archaeological sites from rebels and jihadists. China continues to celebrate its 69th National Day with a light show in Qingdao, a seaside city of East China's Shandong province. Colorful lights and skyscrapers along the Fushan Bay formed the words meaning "I love you, China." Now, the dazzling light shows also enhanced the city's historical buildings and other architectural marvels. In Tangshan, a city in North China's Hebei province, more than about 2 million LED lights lit up the city's night sky.